Hello everyone and welcome back to Full House Sports here with myself, Charlie. Right, unless you've been living under a rock in the world of Rugby Union, the big ongoing saga, I guess you could call it, that is going on is R360, the franchise-based tournament that Mike Tyndall, amongst others, is looking to set up with 12 franchises, 8 men's, 4 women, taking part in a league system that will see matches take place every week, or not every week, but every match week in a different city on a Formula 1 Grand Prix format between the months of April and September. And it's looking to get started up next year. It's looking to get the best players, 360 best players from around the world, in to the tournament and then in their franchises. And the franchise would be based in cities around the world. That came out this week. The winner declared in September. However, as was always the case, there has been a significant pushback on this. Many player rugby unions have said that they would not let players who played in R360, play in their national teams again, which would then inevitably rule the most promising players in the world out of international contention, which is a huge sort of move to consider, and would probably mean that those players that do choose R360 would have the accusation levelled at them that they have chosen money over principles. I've said for a while, I said this about the Rugby Championship last week, I don't think R360 is a good thing. I don't agree with the idea, and I think it's being set up for all the wrong reasons. It's pretty evident to me that Mike Tyndall and his friends, his buddies, his marketing execs have all got together and have all said, how can we make rugby more profitable? I don't care about this whole good of the game idea. It's not for the good of the game. They're looking at, I think he said on his podcast, well, we don't make enough money off fans. We need to get fans. We need to charge them 75 quid a ticket. Then you're looking at 75 quid for a shirt. And then potentially you're having a fan spend at the end with food and drink 300 quid in a day. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's sort of the thing he said. I do get his ideas in another aspect, which are, one, rugby at the minute is falling behind in terms of marketing. That's without a shadow of a doubt. I don't care what anyone says. Rugby union, especially in this country, in England, which is one of the heartlands of rugby union, it's falling behind. You're seeing it time and time again. It's becoming almost small print in newspapers. There's not big spreads covering it unless England are playing. The Gallagher Prem, is quite simply compete with other major leagues in Britain, in Britain and in England. And I myself, big shout out to Richmond Rugby, who allowed me to write an article for them. I can tell you now that the Secretary of English Rugby is massively struggling financially, and you've got a case of the haves and the have-nots. So I've seen that firsthand myself. Rugby does need a proverbial kick up the backside, and I don't agree with R360. I don't agree with the idea of ripping off fans. This whole spin doesn't make sense, because in one hand he said, "Oh, we need to get more eyes on rugby." But then how on earth do you make it more accessible if you're just looking to profiteer off it? That doesn't make sense to me. But there is points to be taken, and also what I hope R360 does, and this is sort of what I wanted to do a video about, is I hope it gives World Rugby and the head honchos and the decision makers, I hope it gives them a little bit of a kick at the backside to actually get their heads together and sort the calendar and sort it out in general, the sport. Club rugby at the moment is verging on disaster. 7 out of the 10 clubs in the Prem owe more than they own. We've just seen Australia announce, that they're going to pick players that would not play for their franchises in Super Rugby. So that's going to mean that their players could inevitably disperse and emigrate to other countries. We've got South Africa that are seemingly playing both calendars, Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere. We've also got this really bizarre new Nations Cup coming in that seems to be, again, a case of the haves and the have-nots. You've got Tier 1, 12 nations, Tier 2, which is 12 nations. I'm sorry, but we're forever complaining. International rugby is not that interesting, but it could be more interesting. We've seen in recent tournaments, Fiji, for example, what they can produce if they had a bit more investment. There's other nations as well that we're looking at and going, we need to sort their act out, but World Rugby isn't invested in them. I think R360, potentially a lot of the Pacific nations are going to be going, well, actually, similar, I guess, to what the Saudi Pro League is in football, where you had a lot of African talent go to Saudi Arabia and people went, money grabbers. Well, no, actually, they're getting generational wealth. I think the Pacific nations will probably look at it and go, actually, we could probably go there, play for a couple of seasons. We'd probably still get picked by our national rugby union boards. And then we're going to go back, and again, we've got that generational wealth. Our great-great-great-grandkids won't have to pay a penny. Because there's rumours that the salaries that they're going to pay at R360 are huge. Obviously, the ruling out by the players' unions is a massive blow to Argentina. I do wonder where that leaves them because, let's face it, no one in New York or Rio de Janeiro or wherever else they're looking at holding games is going to be that interested in having a bunch of close to being retired players or players that aren't good enough for international level playing. I mean, they might if marketed well, but after a while they're going to realise, well, actually, the best players are not playing here, they're playing at the World Cup. And there's no amount of marketing that can disguise that fact. But, like I say, club rugby, international rugby, needs to sort itself out. We've got a rugby championship that just happened where we've got Argentina, all 4 nations looking competitive. Now Argentina, by the looks of it, are going to be left in the lurch, as are Australia. Australia with a home World Cup heading up. Next year, of course, it's not taking place because New Zealand are touring South Africa. And I've said before, I am in favour of these old school tours, but you can't just leave a nation in the lurch who are potentially on the verge of doing something special. Where this leaves Argentina, I don't know. It's a miracle they're competing anyway when you look at the circumstances that they're under. I mean, what do they do now? Do they base themselves basically in Europe, essentially? Meaning that their home fans are going to lose out massively, apart from probably the summer window. There needs to be a big get-together of heads. And I hope this idea that Tyndall came up with is used as a catalyst for that. For me, I would have the idea of you have an international window, like in football. Victor Matfield said it the other week on Supersport, and I totally agree with him. You have an international window where you don't have anything else going on, you just have the window going on. I know there's things like rest weeks and player welfare, but it's got to be sorted because you can't have these tournaments taking place at the same time as different things as well and overlapping. Again, you've got this bizarre situation where South Africa are taking part in the Rugby Championship, but their clubs have just entered the URC and have had the first few games of that. I say just entered. What I mean by that is they've just started playing games in it. So, where does that leave them? I do think a lot of this does hinge on South Africa, and it's an uncomfortable truth, but I do think they have got to say we're either going to go in line with the Northern Hemisphere or we're going to go in line with the Southern Hemisphere. Because for me, they've got they're dipping their toes in every pool. They've got their fingers in all the pies. I'm trying to think of a metaphor there. They've got their fingers in all the rugby pies, and there's no clarity as to where they're going. I do think a lot of it hinges there. I think as well, Super Rugby used to be so strong. It's no longer that. Do you go back if you're New Zealand and go back to an NPC, a National Provincial Championship, with potentially Australian teams involved? Because you don't want Australia, which again, proud rugby nation, you don't want them just left out in the dark. Again, I think you've got to sort out the European stage. A controversial take, I know, but on European club rugby, sorry, I should get that out there. For me, I've got to say to South Africa, look, if you are going to take part in the URC, which I'm not really in favour of anyway, but if you are going to, you've got to take our continental competition seriously. I mean, I remember going to Northampton Saints, I think it was against the Bulls a couple of seasons ago, the Champions Cup quarter-final. The Bulls brought over their second and third string. They didn't care. They were blatant about it. They didn't care. That just lessens the value of your domestic competition. It makes it look silly. And it confuses the eye of the casual viewer. I think as well, going back to my point about Pacific nations, rugby does need to do something about these emerging nations and what they're doing with it. For example, the USA, we see Major League Rugby, again, they're losing clubs. Miami Sharks have gone, another team that they're losing. They seem to be losing teams at a rate of knots. Nothing's being done about that. Why are World Rugby not looking into it and going, actually, if we set up a college programme here, there's a lot of potential athletes, that there's a lot of untapped potential in the American market, which in turn would lead on to the global market. Like I say, I'm not in favour of R360, but let's spin it into a positive. We can laugh at Tyndall, but if you laugh at him and then go, ha ha ha, we've shut it down, but don't actually build on that, then you might as well have just let it happen. Because if you're going to leave your global game in a mess, yeah, you might shut down one idea. You might shut the door on Tyndall, but there'll be another Tyndall. There'll be a Middle Eastern investor. Well, there's Middle East investors. There'll be a Middle East investor from another time who'll come, and he'll have an even bigger pile of money, and it'll be harder for players to say no. Like I say, I think take money out of it for a moment and get the calendar sorted, and then you become more marketable again. Because people will not struggle to understand what's going on as much as they are at the moment. But let me know what you guys think. Like I say, I'm passionate about rugby. I could not stand the idea of R360. I think it was full of lies and just blatant sort of I don't want to say capitalist because that makes me sound weird, but it was just full of pure, it was just pure investment talk, investor talk. It was sales talk, nothing to do with sport, nothing to do with the good of the game, just to do with trying to make a quick buck off the great game. But you got to sort it out. You can't just leave it now. You can't just let Rugby Union rot, because again, it may still happen. He may still plough on Mike Tyndall with these investors. They put a lot of money into it, and then players might go, oh, it's getting a bit harder to say no. But actually, get your ship in order. Then if anyone does go, you can say, right, that's your fault. They've chosen money over principles. But actually, we've got our house in order. So come and watch the proper game rather than watching the TikTok Sharks against the, I don't know, Dubai Warriors, random one. But rather than that, come and watch a proper game. Come and watch a proper Rugby Union, the heart of Rugby Union. Anyways, guys, let us know what you guys think. Please like, comment, subscribe. As always, any interaction is appreciated. Give us a follow on Instagram, and have a great week. Thank you.